This is a short excerpt from BailOut of the Legal Matrix, a simple 10-step guide to freedom by Amali Cabral, published by Big Publishing. Introduction. When I first began developing the Common Sense Inc. information packages, I realized then that eventually I wanted to put them into a book. I wrote each one to operate independently of the other. This way, if the reader wants to skip around or quickly browse through the material, they could. No chapter is alike. However, they all coincide with each other in harmonious fashion. I doubt you will experience any other law book on the market that is easy to understand like ours. And if you do know one, please bring it to my attention so I can get back to work in making this guidebook even better. I chose to use experiences from my own life in some of the following chapters. The reason being that it's easier to absorb what someone else is saying when they put it into relationship form. For instance, dealing with the subject of jurisdiction, I speak about the family law courts and how corrupt and damaging they are to us all. If I proceeded to then give you only the technical aspect of the legal system, I could probably put you to sleep in under 5 minutes. And that is exactly why I decided to lay most of my own horrible situations out in the open for you to analyze and compare when dealing with this particular court. I also tried to make each individual chapter self-sustaining on its own platform. This way, for those of us who lack the time to sit down and read through an entire book, could pick it up now or later. Within each separate section, there is a wide variety of examples of just how broken our mentality is to the system, which I term the legal matrix. In the next paragraph and beyond, I will give those of you who are newly awakened a brief introduction into this paradigm where many are controlled by a few grandiose words. What is the legal matrix? It is the place where men rule gods. No, it has nothing to do with myth or religion, but everything to do with our present reality. Most of you reading this now realize that something is not right within the country you live. For me, it happens to be the United States of America, which was founded not on principles of freedom, but rather dictates of subjugation. Classless society is a free one. When the people are able to thrive and prosper not off of capital gains, but collective enterprise united by one common goal to liberate the mind and body from tyranny. Now honestly, think for a moment. Looking at your current political leaders from the head of state to the local attorney, does it seem like they are operating in unison with you, or are they in opposition to you? Usually this question gets the typical reply of, well, if you're not a criminal, you have nothing to worry about. And my favorite, if there was no laws, then the country would spiral into chaos. In this day and age, because most people are so used to the matrix, yes, that could be possible, because they depend more on others who exploit them than on themselves for personal freedom. However, there was a time when civilizations were run very effectively without a lot of rules imposed on the population. This was because they raised their children to value the mental and physical aspect of creation. The depth of our brain power is magnificent. When it is properly educated and given instructions to enrich its environment, the outcome is simply beautifully interwoven with nature. In your research, you will find many ancient cultures utilizing the mental and physical aspect to become more in tune with their natural surroundings, in those areas still unknown to scientists today. A few paragraphs ago, I mentioned the word gods. And it was because when you acquire more and more knowledge, especially of yourself, your thoughts begin to change, and your actions reflect your ideas. When this happens, you become empowered not by ego, but by a higher power within the mind that can quickly decipher what is true and what is not. And a man cannot do this when he is trapped in the matrix, going with whatever is the latest fad or phase in his community. In this aspect, being a part of the ignorant collective is not popular, but foolish and detrimental even to one's mental health. When I was still unsophisticated, practicing my particular religion, which believed in a supreme deity called Yah, or God, I had no realization of the fact that I could not prove he even existed. I remember being in heated debates with people over this, and using the typical excuse that because Earth and everything on it exists, that somehow God did too. Yet in reality, in order for something to exist, there has to be evidence for its subsistence. And claiming that a tree is something we can feel and touch does not prove an invisible deity does. The same goes for rules in the legal matrix. In order for them to exist, there has to be empirical evidence for them. This is where the skeptics say, well, you see the jails, you see the prisons, you see the police and judges, there's your proof. However, this does not prove anything other than force and coercion exists within the government. In the Matrix, it is well accepted that the burden of proof does not reside on the lawmakers, but on the unsuspecting citizens who would rather not trouble themselves with looking up the facts. Does the law exist because Senator Sally says so? Is there empirical evidence for the new crime law because Judge Jackson claims it does? How about this example? What if I wrote in this book that when you're done reading, it will produce pink unicorns that will fly out of the pages, and you can even ride one if you catch it? Why don't you believe me? You shouldn't, because your common sense tells you from knowledge and experience that pink unicorns do not exist. This is a definition of the word empirical. In order for something to be true, we must be able to see it, feel it, measure it, and possibly experience it. So the bright sun that is out most of the time in Southern California, where I live, can be seen. We can feel its heat. Scientists can measure its size, temperature, etc. This all can be experienced between the mental and physical aspects of the body and what we call our life. So when someone comes along and says the sun is not real, we have empirical evidence that it is in fact very real. Now, can the same be said about the laws that are in place within the Matrix? Can you see a law? And if so, what does a law look like? Can you feel a law? How about can you measure the law with a ruler or running tests on it in a lab? Can you experience the law outside of its numerous consequences? And the intelligent answer to all these questions is absolutely not. The laws that people obey every single day of their lives is just an abstract thought made up by people like you and I. Sure, they may put on special titles or wear shiny pieces of metal, but who gives them the authority to do so other than their system of force and coercion? Sadly, we do. This is why I finally decided to publish this book. I realized that we can no longer blame anyone else but ourselves when it comes to allowing tyranny to rule over us. And we are doing a serious disservice to our children by not recognizing the danger of an oppressive system. Do not be fooled by the luxury of handouts. Just because we have access to a lot of the world's resources does not mean we are well off. Actually, I've noticed the more one has materially, the less aware they are of their own insecurities. Simply put, most of our family and friends feel unstable without someone else telling them what to do all day long, as long as it comes in some form of words that threaten their life, liberty, and property. This book is not for them. It is for you and I. Now let's bail you out. This is a short excerpt from BailOut of the Legal Matrix, a simple 10-step guide to freedom